We're basically swimming in data these days. It's everywhere. It's shaping huge government policies, it's behind the apps on our phones, it's everything. But with all this information flying around, how do we actually know what to trust? How can we be sure the conclusions someone pulls from all that data are, legit?
All right, let's just dive right in with a super high stakes example. Picture this. You've got incredibly complex data, you're looking for a tiny, tiny signal, and if you get it wrong, well, the consequences are massive. It's it's a perfect storm.
And this is exactly the kind of storm researchers are sailing into when they study air pollution and public health. They're hunting for these really small but super important health effects that are buried inside these enormous, messy data sets. And this isn't just some academic thought experiment. Their findings can literally trigger regulations that affect entire industries.
Yeah, this slide really puts you inside the pressure cooker they're in. We're not just talking about a little curiosity here. We're talking about incredibly complex statistical models that feed directly into EPA regulations, regulations that can cost billions of dollars. And you better believe with that much money and public health on the line, every single part of their analysis gets picked apart by everyone. The burden of proof is just huge. And this quote, this gets right to the heart of the matter. When an analysis is this long, complicated, almost like a black box, it just creates doubt. I mean, if nobody can follow your work, how can they possibly trust your conclusions? This is exactly why we need some clear, solid principles to build that trust back up. So, okay, how do we build that trust when we're dealing with data? Well, it really boils down to two key ideas. They're concepts that people mix up all the time, but they're actually critically different: replication and reproducibility. And this slide lays out the difference perfectly. Replication is the big one. It's asking about the scientific claim itself. Can a completely different team with totally new data get to the same basic conclusion? That's the gold standard. Reproducibility, though, is asking something different. It's about the analysis. It asks a much simpler but still fundamental question. If I take your exact data and your exact computer code, can I get the exact same result? So let's be super clear. Replication, that's the ultimate test. It's really the foundation of all scientific knowledge. If a result can be replicated over and over again, independently in different labs with different data, that's when we get really confident that a claim is actually true. But here's the thing. Sometimes full-blown replication just isn't possible. I mean, you can't just rerun a 20-year-long study on a whim, right? And that's why reproducibility is so incredibly important. It's a minimum standard of transparency. It lets other people audit your work, check your math, and make sure your analysis actually does what you claim it does. So why all the fuss? Why can't we just read the final report and take it at face value? Well, to really get it, we need to peek behind the curtain at something called the data pipeline. Think of it as the entire journey data takes, from a simple question to a final answer. Every single analysis starts with a question about the world. That's what we call the domain question. And from there, you have the actual process of going out and collecting the raw data. So far, pretty straightforward. But this is where it starts to get tricky. Raw data is almost never clean. It has to be pre-processed, cleaned up, formatted, wrangled into shape. Only then can you actually start the real data analysis, the modeling, the statistics, all the fun stuff. And then, after all those steps, you finally get to the end of the line, the data product. This is the tangible thing that comes out of the whole process: the paper, the report, the dashboard, the thing that gets shared with the world. And a data product isn't just some stuffy scientific paper, not at all. It could be that internal report you send to your boss, an interactive dashboard your team uses to track sales, a new software tool, or even the prediction algorithm that powers your favorite app. All of these are the final output of a data pipeline. So here's the absolute kicker. This entire pipeline is a long chain of decisions and actions. One tiny error in the data cleaning phase, one wrong assumption in the analysis phase, it can have a massive ripple effect on the final result. Without a clear map showing how you got there, without reproducibility, it's just really, really hard for anyone to trust the destination. But okay, here's a really fascinating twist in all of this. Does every single data product need to be perfectly, transparently reproducible for absolutely everyone in the world? The argument here is actually no. It really, really depends on who your audience is. Here's the golden rule. Your work has to be reproducible for you.
You, the analyst, have to be able to go back, rerun your own analysis, and get the same answer. That's non-negotiable. But whether you need to package all that up for your audience, that depends entirely on who they are and what they care about. Let's look at how this plays out. If your audience is other scientists, oh yeah, the bar for reproducibility is sky high. They're going to want to see your data, your code, the software you used, the whole shebang. Their goal is to poke and prod at your work, maybe even build on top of it. So that level of transparency is an absolute must. But now, flip the script. What if your audience is just your team at work? They probably aren't going to ask for your raw data and all your messy code. They trust you. What they care about is whether the dashboard you built is easy to use and actually helps them make better decisions. Their questions are going to be about the results, not the nitty-gritty process. And here's a third example. Let's say you build a prediction algorithm and release it as a software tool. Your audience, other developers, they can't see your secret proprietary training data. In this world, trust isn't built on transparency, it's built on performance. Does your tool work? Is it reliable? Does it do a better job than the competition? That's what matters. Okay, so we've seen the problem, we've seen the nuances. So when you do need to make your work totally reproducible for a demanding audience, how do you, actually do it? How do you make it clean and understandable? Well, a big part of the answer lies in this powerful idea from the absolute legend of computer science, Donald Knuth. It's a concept called literate programming, and it's basically a way of organizing your work so it makes perfect sense to both computers and to other human beings. The idea here is just brilliant. Instead of having a messy script of code over here and a totally separate document over there trying to explain it, literate programming weaves them together into a single story. You write a clear narrative explaining your thought process, the why, and then you embed the little chunks of code that do the actual work, the how, right there in the flow. It creates one single, transparent document where anybody can follow your logic from start to finish. So let's wrap this all up. What are the big takeaways? First, replication is about asking if a claim is true. Second, reproducibility is about asking if an analysis is trustworthy. Third, the level of reproducibility you need totally depends on your audience. And finally, when you need to be transparent, awesome tools like literate programming give you a clear roadmap to building that trust.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. From the news we read to the science that shapes our health and our world, we're constantly hit with claims based on data. Knowing the difference between a claim that's just reproducible versus one that's been truly replicated, well, it might just change how you see everything. So the real question is, how much proof is enough for you?